The galaxy was old, filled with ruins that spoke of forgotten wars and civilizations that had vanished long before most living races rose from their homeworlds. Among these ruins, there was one site that stood above all others, a battlefield frozen in time, where the ground itself still carried scars of weapons no one could understand. At the heart of this place lay the relic, a massive suit of black armor forged from a material harder than any known metal. No one knew who had created it. No one knew how long it had rested there. But the legends were clear. The armor could only be worn by the true conqueror, a being chosen by fate itself. Every alien who tried to claim it was rejected. The armor stayed silent and cold, as if waiting for something that had not yet come. Generations of explorers, warlords, and scholars had studied it. Some believed it was cursed. Others thought it was simply broken. Yet the stories continued to spread across the stars. Tales of an indestructible armor that no alien could wear. The Zorath scholars were the latest to visit the ruins. Their tall insectoid forms moved carefully among the broken stones as they recorded every detail. They clicked their mandibles in frustration as their strongest warrior once again failed to move the armor even an inch. The suit remained rooted to its pedestal, dark and lifeless. Another waste of time, one of them hissed in their clicking language. Perhaps the legend is false. But deep down, they all knew the truth. The armor was waiting. It had always been waiting. Far away, humanity was still new to the galactic stage. Only a few decades had passed since humans discovered faster-than-light travel. Compared to the vast empires of the galaxy, they were small, fragile, and often mocked by the older species. Humans were seen as reckless, too curious for their own good, and far too ambitious for a race so young. Captain Elias Kane had heard those insults many times. He was young by human standards with sharp eyes and a restless spirit. When he was given command of a small exploratory ship, he made a decision that shocked even his own crew. He set a course for the ruins of the forbidden battlefield. "Sir," his first officer said as their ship approached the ancient world, "are you certain about this? That place is cursed. No ship that visits comes back with anything useful." Elias smiled faintly. "Then maybe it's time a human tried." The planet below was barren, its skies filled with dust that glowed red under the light of its dying sun. The ruins stretched across the horizon like the bones of a giant beast. Monuments shattered into pieces, towers half buried in sand, weapons of strange design rusted into silence. All of it spoke of a war so old and violent that even time itself seemed afraid to erase it completely. At the center of it all stood the pedestal of black stone, and upon it the armor. It was massive, built for a being larger than any human or alien Elias had ever seen. The surface of the armor was smooth, without scratches, as if untouched by the centuries. Its helmet was shaped like the face of a silent guardian, eyes empty but watching. The chest plate carried marks that glowed faintly, though no energy source could be detected. Dozens of aliens were already present, gathered in a wide circle around the relic. Some were scholars recording every detail. Others were warriors who had failed the test and now stared with bitter envy. The moment the humans stepped into the ruins, dozens of alien eyes turned toward them. Laughter broke out among the crowd. "A human?" One alien barked, its voice deep and mocking. "Do they truly think they will succeed where we have failed? Pathetic. Let them try. It will be amusing." Elias ignored them. His crew looked nervous, but he walked forward calmly, his boots echoing against the ancient stone floor. The closer he came to the armor, the heavier the air seemed to grow. There was a weight to the place, a presence that pressed down on his chest. He stopped only a few steps away and stared at it in silence. For centuries, no alien had been able to awaken the armor. Some had tried with brute force, others with advanced technology. A few had even attempted rituals, believing the relic was divine. All had failed. Elias reached out his hand. His crew held their breath. The aliens whispered among themselves, expecting the same result as always. The armor would remain silent, rejecting him as it had rejected everyone else. But the moment his fingers brushed the surface, everything changed. A faint hum filled the air, deep and powerful, as though the entire ruin had just taken a breath. The black surface of the armor rippled, shifting slightly under his touch. The faint marks on the chest plate flared with light for the first time in centuries. Gasps filled the ruins. Aliens stepped back in shock. "The armor, it responds," someone shouted. "No!" "This is impossible," another roared. "It cannot choose a human." Elias pulled his hand back in shock, but the armor reached for him instead. The plates shifted, expanding and contracting, reshaping themselves to fit his size. It was no longer the armor of a giant, but of a man. Without a word, Elias stepped forward. Piece by piece, the armor wrapped around him. Shoulders, chest, arms, legs. It moved like liquid metal, yet felt solid as stone. The helmet lowered onto his head, and in that moment the ruins were filled with blinding light. The aliens fell silent. Even the wind seemed to stop. The armor had chosen. Elias felt a rush of energy unlike anything he had ever known. His body felt lighter, yet stronger, as if every cell was alive with fire. His vision sharpened, showing details of the ruins that had been hidden before. He could hear faint echoes, whispers of voices that spoke in languages long forgotten. In his mind, images flashed, battles fought across burning skies. Warriors standing against impossible odds, the clash of steel and fire. He felt their strength, their determination, and their sacrifice. It was as if the armor carried not only power, but memory. When the light faded, Elias stood tall in the center of the ruins. The black armor gleamed, alive with faint energy. The aliens stared at him in silence. Then the shouting began. "This cannot be allowed. The humans are unworthy. The armor must be taken from him." But no one dared step forward. They had seen what happened. The relic had chosen him freely. Elias raised a hand, feeling the power flow through him, and for the first time he understood the truth. The armor had not been waiting for the strongest warrior, nor the oldest empire. It had been waiting for something else, something different. It had been waiting for humanity. As the aliens argued and shouted, Elias turned to his crew, his voice calm but firm. "We didn't come here to steal. We didn't come here to conquer. But this armor chose me, and I intend to find out why." The words carried across the ruins, silencing even the loudest voices. For centuries, the armor had rejected all who tried, but now for the first time it had accepted someone, and that someone was human. The galaxy would never be the same. The ruins did not fall silent after Elias Kane wore the armor. They became louder. Rumors spread across the galaxy within days. Entire space stations buzzed with the same words, "The armor has chosen a human." For some, this news was laughable. The older races dismissed it as a trick, claiming humans had found a way to fake the relic's reaction. Others were terrified. If the stories were true, it meant that humanity, this young, small, and untested race, might be destined for something greater than the oldest empires. Elias himself did not fully understand what had happened. Inside the armor, he felt both powerful and fragile. Every movement carried strength, yet every heartbeat seemed connected to something larger, something watching him. The whispers of old voices still lingered in his mind. His crew stayed close, both worried and amazed. Lieutenant Arya Vance, his first officer, spoke carefully as they left the ruins. "Sir, this isn't just history. You've changed everything." Elias looked down at the black plates covering him. They felt weightless now. But he remembered how many alien champions had failed even to lift a single piece. He shook his head slowly. "I didn't change anything," he said softly. "The armor did. The aliens who had witnessed the event did not let it rest." The moment the humans returned to their ship, they were followed by angry delegations. Warships hovered in orbit, watching, their captains unwilling to leave without answers. On the bridge of the Endeavor, Elias stood in the armor while dozens of alien faces appeared on the comm screens. Their voices overlapped in a storm of anger and disbelief. "You have no right. Hand over the relic at once. The armor belongs to the galaxy, not to humans." Elias let them shout. When silence finally came, he spoke with steady calm. "I didn't take it," he said. "It chose me. If any of you think I forced it, then you are free to try again. But the truth will remain the same. None of the aliens volunteered. They had already seen the armor come alive for the human. To step forward now would only confirm their weakness." Back on Earth, the news caused a storm unlike anything before. Governments argued, scholars demanded answers, and ordinary people filled the streets with celebration. Humanity had always been treated as children among the stars. Now suddenly they were the chosen of an ancient relic. The Galactic Council summoned Elias almost immediately. Though humans did not yet have a permanent seat, the Council demanded his presence. He traveled to the shining halls of the neutral station known as Solaris Prime, where representatives of every great species gathered. The council chamber was vast, shaped like a circle with seats rising upward in rings. At its center stood the speaking floor, and on that floor Elias Kane appeared in the living armor. Gasps echoed through the chamber as he walked forward, the black plates gleaming under the high lights. The council leader, a tall being of light called the Sarathi speaker, raised his hand. "Captain Elias Kane of Earth," the voice rang out, calm but heavy. "You stand before the united powers of the galaxy. Explain to us why the armor has accepted you." Elias shook his head. "I don't know," he admitted. "I touched it and it answered. That is all." The chamber erupted with shouts. "Impossible. A deception. This is dangerous." The speaker's voice silenced them again. "And what do you intend to do with this power, human?" Elias took a deep breath. He could feel the eyes of every species on him. He could feel the weight of history pressing against his shoulders. "I don't intend to rule anyone," he said. "I don't intend to conquer. The armor came to me and I will learn why. Until then, I will not let it fall into hands that would use it for tyranny." The chamber grew quiet. His words were simple, but they carried strength. That night, whispers filled the halls of SciFi-Prime. Not all aliens believed him. Some feared that the humans would become unstoppable with the relic. Others saw opportunity, if they could not wear the armor. Perhaps they could control the one who did. It was not long before the first attempt came. Elias was resting in his quarters when the armor suddenly tightened around his chest. He woke instantly, heart pounding. The armor had not only chosen him, it was protecting him. An explosion shook the walls. The door burst open as masked figures stormed in. Weapons raised. They were mercenaries from several species hired to capture him, but the armor moved before Elias could think. A field of light flared around him, and the blasts from the weapons bounced away harmlessly. With a motion of his hand, the armor released a shockwave that sent the attackers crashing into the walls. Arya and the security team rushed in moments later, finding the mercenaries unconscious on the floor. Elias stared at his hands, trembling. I didn't know it could do that." Arya's eyes were wide, but her voice was steady. "Sir, the galaxy will not stop testing you." This was only the beginning. The following days brought more trials. The council demanded demonstrations. Scholars asked endless questions. Warriors challenged him, seeking to prove that strength alone could overcome the human in the armor. Each time, Elias refused to fight unless forced. The armor defended him when necessary, but he never used its power to humiliate or destroy. Slowly, some aliens began to see him differently, not as a thief of destiny, but as someone chosen for a reason. Yet the challenges did not stop. One duel could not be avoided. A proud warrior of the Drakthar, a reptilian species known for their endless duels, stood before the council and declared, "If the armor truly chose him, let him face me. If he falls, then humanity is unworthy." The council approved. The duel would be held in the great arena of SciFi-Prime, watched by billions across the galaxy. The arena was vast, a circle of stone and steel beneath a dome of transparent glass. Stars filled the sky above as the crowd roared. On one side stood the Drakthar champion, tall and armored in scales. On the other side, Elias Kane clad in the living relic. The duel began with a roar. The Drakthar charged, his weapon striking with the force of thunder. Elias raised his arm, and the armor created a shield of dark energy that held firm. The clash shook the arena, but Elias did not fall. The Drakthar struck again and again, but each time the armor answered with calm strength. Elias felt the power flow through him, guiding his movements. He did not fight with rage. He fought with focus, letting the armor show him the path. At last, the Drakthar overextended, leaving his chest open. Elias could have ended the duel with a single devastating strike. Instead, he lowered his hand and stepped back. "No," Elias said firmly. "This is not about killing. This is about proof." The crowd gasped. The Drakthar froze, then slowly bowed his head. In front of the galaxy, he admitted defeat. For the first time, billions of eyes looked at Elias Kane, not with laughter, not with anger, but with respect. But far beyond SciFi-Prime, in the darkness of forgotten space, something else was stirring. When the armor awakened, it had not gone unnoticed. A fleet of ships, ancient and deadly, rose from the void where they had slept for centuries. Their commanders, shadowy figures with burning eyes, spoke a single word. "The armor has returned." And they set their course for the heart of the galaxy. The duel had changed everything. Billions across the galaxy had watched as Elias Kane, the human in the black armor, defeated the Drakthar champion without cruelty. His victory was not just strength, it was mercy, and that mercy left a stronger mark than any blade could. For the first time, whispers across the stars began to shift. Some still mocked, some still doubted, but others began to say, perhaps the armor chose him for a reason. But respect was fragile. In the Great Council chambers, alien leaders continued to argue. The older species, those who had ruled for centuries, feared what the humans represented. If this boy is allowed to grow unchecked, hissed a scaled ambassador, he will become a weapon none of us can control. Then let him be tested, another replied. If the armor truly chose him, he must face trials worthy of it. The council voted, and Elias, though not yet a council member, was summoned and given no choice. The chamber lights dimmed as the Sarathi speaker addressed him. Captain Elias Kane of Earth, the speaker said, his voice like soft thunder. The council recognizes your bond with the relic, but power without proof cannot be trusted. You will face the trials of power, ancient tests designed to reveal whether you are worthy to wield such strength. Elias met his gaze calmly. And if I fail? Then the armor will be sealed away and humanity will be forbidden to touch it again. His crew protested, but Elias raised a hand. The whispers of the armor still lingered in his mind, and deep down, he felt this was meant to happen. I accept. The first trial was the trial of endurance. Elias was taken to a world of storms, where lightning tore the skies and the air itself burned with static. He was ordered to cross a desert of glass, carrying no ship, no supplies, only the armor. When he stepped into the storm, the winds howled with a force that could tear metal apart. The lightning struck in endless bolts brighter than suns. Any other being would have been crushed, burned, or driven mad within minutes, but the armor shielded him, though not completely. The heat scorched, the winds battered, and every step felt heavier than the last. He marched across the wasteland for hours, then days, with only the whispers of the armor to guide him. On the third night, when exhaustion pressed like a mountain on his chest, Elias stumbled to his knees. Why me? He whispered into the storm, and the armor answered, not in words, but in visions. He saw humans throughout history, explorers crossing oceans, soldiers standing on hopeless battlefields, workers building cities from nothing. Humanity had always endured, always pushed forward. Elias rose again. He did not finish the trial with ease, but he finished it with unbroken spirit. The watchers above recorded every moment, and when he emerged from the storm, battered but standing, even his enemies could not deny his will. The second trial was the trial of wisdom. This one was not about strength. Elias was brought to an ancient vault filled with puzzles built by the long-vanished creators of the armor. The doors shifted endlessly, walls moved like rivers of stone, and every choice led either forward or into traps of crushing weight. Many alien champions had tried before. None had returned. Elias entered the maze. At first, frustration burned in him. Walls that changed as soon as he chose a path, riddles written in symbols no human had ever seen. But as he moved, the whispers of the armor grew louder. The relic remembered. It showed him fragments of knowledge, hints of patterns in the chaos. Slowly, he began to understand. The maze was not about intelligence alone, it was about patience. It tested not how fast he solved it, but whether he could remain calm when all seemed lost. After days of walking, thinking, and refusing despair, Elias reached the heart of the vault. The final chamber opened to reveal a crystal of light that pulsed with warmth. He touched it, and the maze dissolved into nothingness the council was forced to admit. Human patience had passed a test that had broken countless warriors. The third trial was the trial of choice. Elias was brought to a station orbiting a dying star. There, two groups of aliens were trapped. One group his allies, another sworn enemies of humanity. A massive firestorm from the star threatened to destroy the station, and he was told, "You may save one group, but not both." It was a cruel test. The armor hummed with restless energy as he stood at the station's core, alarms blaring, flames consuming the walls. Arya's voice reached him through comms. "Sir, if you choose the allies, the council will praise you. If you choose the enemies, they'll see you as a fool. But if you do nothing, both will die." Elias closed his eyes. Humanity had always been known for one thing above all else: defiance. They refused to accept limits, refused to bow to impossible choices. He raised his hands and the armor flared brighter than ever before. With a roar of energy, it extended shields across both wings of the station. The firestorm struck, but the armor absorbed the heat, bending it away like water against rock. Both groups survived. When Elias emerged, drained but alive, the council was stunned. The trial had been designed to force sacrifice. But he had refused the rules. He broke the trial, one alien whispered. No, another said quietly. He changed it. Word of the trial spread across the galaxy. Some were impressed. Some were afraid. But none could deny what they had seen. Yet not everyone accepted the outcome. In the shadows of Solaris Prime, plots grew. Assassins whispered of ways to separate Elias from the armor. Politicians schemed to control him. And far beyond the council's reach, the old enemy, those awakened when the armor returned, watched and waited. One night, Elias dreamed. He stood in darkness, the armor glowing faintly around him. Before him appeared a figure, tall, faceless, wrapped in the same black plates but older, heavier with time. You walk the same path we once walked, the figure said, its voice like distant thunder. But know this, the armor does not grant destiny. It only reveals what is already within you. The enemy we fought still lingers, and they will come for you. Elias tried to speak, but the figure faded, leaving only silence. He woke with his heart pounding. The council congratulated him publicly. They called him a champion, a proof of unity. But behind the words, Elias felt the unease. He had passed every trial, yet still they doubted him. As his ship prepared to depart Solaris Prime, Arya approached him quietly. Sir, you know this isn't over. You saw the fleets moving in the outer systems. Something is coming. Elias nodded. Yes, the armor chose me for a reason, and I think we're about to find out why. Above them, the stars shimmered with cold light. Somewhere in that darkness, ancient engines were waking, carrying enemies that had destroyed entire civilizations. The galaxy had tested the human in the armor. Now, the real enemy would test the galaxy itself. The calm that followed the trials was a fragile illusion. For days, Elias Kane and his crew traveled through the outer systems, studying the armor, learning its limits, and preparing for what they all sensed was coming. The galaxy had already begun to shift. Older species, once confident in their supremacy, grew uneasy. They sent envoys, spies, and fleets to observe humanity. Some sought friendship, others sought to control. But all feared one truth. The armor had chosen a human, and a human had passed the trials. Elias understood the unease, but he had no time for politics. Something far more dangerous had awakened. Deep in the void beyond the outer rim, an ancient fleet stirred. These ships were unlike anything seen in living memory. Long, black vessels etched with glowing red symbols. They had been dormant for centuries, waiting for the return of the armor. And now, they moved with precision, forming a path toward the heart of the galaxy. Their commanders were shadows of old wars, remnants of an enemy that had once swept through entire star systems with unstoppable force. They called themselves the Ecliptans, and their memory was feared in legends. The Ecliptans had been defeated once, not by strength alone, but by unity among those who fought them. Now they had detected the armor, and with it the humans who carried it. The relic has awakened, said the leader of the fleet, its voice echoing inside the bridge of the command ship. Prepare the assault. The galaxy will burn if necessary, but the armor must be destroyed. Back aboard the Endeavor, Elias sensed the disturbance before the first reports came in. The armor had always been more than protection. It was a link, a silent communicator. Through it, he felt tremors in the void, whispers of movement and a pull toward danger. Sir, Arya said, reviewing the sensors, we're detecting multiple unidentified fleets. They're heading toward the inner systems at maximum speed. Elias clenched his fists. The armor led me to these trials for a reason. They want us to face this. Alert the Council. We'll need every ally we can find. The first warning arrived in the form of attacks on frontier colonies. Outposts vanished. Communication stations went dark, and fleets sent to investigate were destroyed before they could respond. Panic spread across the galaxy. The older empires sent fleets to intercept, but the Ecliptans were swift and precise. Entire sectors were swallowed by darkness in a matter of hours. Planets that had not seen war in centuries now trembled under bombardment. Through it all, the council called an emergency meeting. Species that had long considered humans weak now looked to Elias for leadership. "Captain Kane," the Sarathi speaker said, his voice grave, "the council acknowledges your victories and your bond with the relic. The Ecliptans move faster than anything we have faced. You may be our only chance." Elias took a deep breath. He looked down at the black armor, its faint glow steady as always. "I don't know if I can stop them alone," he said, "but I will not let them destroy the galaxy. The armor chose me to protect, not to rule, and that is what I will do." The first real battle came in the Zarin cluster, a dense field of asteroids and small moons. The Ecliptans moved as one, like shadows slipping between rocks, attacking with beams of energy and missiles that could vaporize anything in seconds. Elias led the human fleet, flanked by ships from species who had begun to trust him. The aliens had doubted him before, but now they followed, even into a battle that seemed hopeless. The first clash was brutal. Several ships were destroyed instantly, torn apart by weapons no defense could fully block. Yet Elias, in the armor, moved through the chaos like a storm. The suit amplified his reflexes, his mind calculating every trajectory and strike faster than any human could. With a gesture, he sent out waves of energy that deflected incoming fire, shielding both his ship and nearby allies. Every movement was precise, conserving power, guiding his forces and striking where the enemy was weakest. The Ecliptans recoiled, surprised by the strategy. They had expected humans to panic, to scatter, but Elias moved with calm, confident leadership that no alien commander had ever shown. Even so, the cost was high. Ships burned and crews were lost. Arya, always at his side, coordinated retreats and defenses while Elias held the line. The armor absorbed what it could, but even it had limits. Every time it pulsed, Elias felt the strain in his body, the echo of every battle fought by the armor's previous wielders. Late into the battle, Elias saw an Ecliptan dreadnought, a massive warship bristling with weapons moving to destroy the center of the fleet. Without hesitation, he piloted the Endeavor straight into the enemy's path. The armor responded instantly. Its plates shifted and expanded, forming energy shields around the ship. Elias directed power to the engines and weapons simultaneously, striking the dreadnought while protecting nearby vessels. In the end, the massive ship was disabled, its crew surrendering or retreating. But Elias knew this was only a small victory. The Ecliptans had many more ships, and their purpose was clear: destroy the armor and everything it protected. After the battle, Elias convened a council of allies. Species who had once doubted him now stood beside him as equals, discussing strategy instead of politics. "We cannot fight them with strength alone," Elias said. "We need unity. Every fleet, every planet, every warrior must work together. If we divide, we fail. If we fight as one, we might survive." An alien commander, a tall figure of silver and blue named Lyra of the Veyrai, nodded. "Human, you speak with clarity. Your armor may have chosen you, but your mind guides your people. That is rare." Elias felt a quiet pride, but also the weight of responsibility. He was learning that power alone was not enough. Leadership required vision, patience, and trust, qualities he had not always been confident he possessed. Days passed. Battles erupted across multiple sectors. The Ecliptans seemed unstoppable, but each encounter revealed one truth. The humans, led by Elias in the armor, were more adaptable, more creative, and more united than their enemies expected. During one battle near a binary star, the armor revealed another ability. Elias could manipulate energy around him, redirecting beams of fire and plasma to destroy enemy ships without harming civilian vessels. The effect was awe-inspiring. Allied fleets began to fight with renewed confidence, following his example, trusting that the human captain could survive where others would fall. Across the galaxy, word spread. Aliens who had once sneered at humans now whispered among themselves, "Perhaps they are not so weak. Perhaps the armor knew what it was doing. Perhaps humanity is the key to survival." Yet, amidst these victories, Elias never let himself feel invincible. Each battle, each test of power, reminded him of what was at stake. The Ecliptans were relentless, and somewhere in the shadows, their commanders were learning from each encounter, adapting, and preparing a strike that could destroy the galaxy in a single move. One night, as he stood on the observation deck of the Endeavor, staring at the stars, Elias turned to Arya. "They are learning," he said quietly, "and I fear that what we have done so far is only the beginning. The real test is coming." Arya placed a hand on his shoulder.
"Then we will be ready."
"You are not alone, sir. Every fleet, every ally, every life we protect, they are fighting with you." Elias nodded. The armor pulsed softly as if acknowledging her words. For the first time, he felt the full weight of the connection. The relic was more than a tool. It was a guide, a guardian, and now, a symbol of hope for an entire galaxy. But deep in the darkness beyond the outer sectors, the Ecliptan commanders watched the human. "He is stronger than we imagined," one said, voice cold as space. "But the armor is not invincible. Prepare the ultimate strike. We will test him, and the galaxy will burn if he survives." And with that, the fleet disappeared into hyperspace faster than any fleet had moved in centuries, heading for the systems that had just begun to trust humanity. The galaxy waited, tense and fearful, as the true battle for survival approached. Elias Kane knew one truth. Passing the trials was only the beginning. The Ecliptans were coming, and this time the stakes were no longer tests. They were life and death, and the armor, alive and ancient, would fight with him. But only if he proved worthy. The great chamber of the Galactic Council was built to hold voices from every corner of the galaxy. It stretched wider than most planets' cities, a place where rulers, thinkers, and chosen speakers of thousands of civilizations gathered. Its walls shone with silver light, etched with star maps that shifted as new worlds joined the council. In the middle of the chamber, arranged in a perfect circle, stood the seats of power. Each one carried the emblem of its homeworld. Each one glowed with the life of its people. Together they formed the symbol of unity that the council claimed to protect. But among them was one seat that did not glow. It remained dark, untouched, and silent. On its surface was the emblem of Earth, the world of humans. That seat had never been filled in living memory. Aliens whispered when they looked at it. Some called it a cursed place. Others called it a warning. And a few, the bold ones, wondered if it was a secret the council wanted everyone to forget. For generations, new species who joined the council asked the same question. Why is Earth's seat empty? And every time the older members would say, "Do not ask. Do not speak of them." But silence never killed curiosity. High above the chamber, a young scholar named Lyra sat in the balcony reserved for record keepers. Her species, the slender and bright-eyed Lysari, valued knowledge above all else. She had been chosen to learn the history of the council, so she could pass it on to the next generation. Yet every time she copied the official records, her eyes returned to that empty chair. She had studied maps of the Milky Way. She had memorized the archives of fallen empires and recorded the births of new ones. But about Earth and the humans there was nothing. Not a word. Not even a warning. It was as if history itself had been cut apart, leaving a hole where humanity once stood. And that hole frightened the galaxy more than any warlord or invader. The council session began with the booming voice of the High Speaker, a tall crystalline being named Orath. His voice was deep, echoing like bells. "Order," he said. Though no one was truly loud, the chamber always grew quiet when the empty seat was near. Delegates rose one by one to speak. A war on the far rim needed supplies. A plague on a water world required medicine. New trade routes had been discovered between 3 young species. It was the usual business of the council. Safe, calm, and predictable. Yet whenever someone's gaze slipped to the human seat, their words faltered. Lyra noticed it again and again. Even Orath himself seemed careful not to look at it directly. His gaze always circled the chamber but skipped over that chair like light skipping over a shadow. Lyra's curiosity grew like fire. When the session ended, the delegates rose and walked out in silence. Some spoke to allies, some argued about trade, but none went near the human seat. It stood there in its usual silence, collecting dust that no caretaker dared to clean. Lyra descended from the balcony, her mind restless. She walked slowly, watching the council members leave until only a few guards and record keepers remained. She stood before the seat at last. Up close, it was not as dark as it seemed. The emblem of Earth, an image of a blue sphere surrounded by a circle of stars, was carved into the surface. Dust covered the edges, but the symbol itself seemed untouched, as if time itself respected it. She reached out a hand not to touch, but to feel the air around it. The air was colder here. A guard noticed her and barked sharply, "Step away, scholar." His forearms crossed in warning. Lyra stepped back, startled. "I meant no harm. I was only curious. Curiosity is dangerous," the guard said. His voice lowered, and his many eyes shifted around to be sure no one else heard. "That seat is not for you. Not for anyone. Remember that. Why is it empty?" she asked softly. The guard stiffened, then turned his back without answering. That night, Lyra returned to her quarters on the council station, but her thoughts refused to rest. She opened her holoslate, searching the archives for Earth and humanity. The results were empty. Not just missing, restricted. Each attempt brought the same cold message: access forbidden by order of the Council. Why would the Council forbid history? Knowledge was the foundation of unity. To erase it was to admit fear, she whispered to herself. What did the humans do? Across the galaxy, on a world of storms, a very different meeting was taking place. In a hidden chamber deep under the surface, a gathering of older species spoke in secret. These were the veterans of wars, the builders of empires, and the survivors of ages. Their bodies were weak now, but their memories stretched back further than any library. A voice like rushing water asked, "The young ones are asking again about Earth. How long can we keep them silent?" A voice of stone answered, "As long as needed. The humans must remain forgotten." Another voice, softer but sharper, said, "But what if they return? The empty seat still waits." The chamber grew quiet. Even among the powerful, the idea of humans returning to the Council filled them with unease. Finally, the voice of stone said, "If they return, then the galaxy will remember why we asked them to leave." Back in her quarters, Lyra felt the weight of silence pressing on her. She could almost hear the whispers of the empty seat. Her mind turned to a memory from her childhood. When she was young, her teacher once told her a story, half joking, half serious. There was once a species that could not be defeated. They had no claws, no wings, no scales, no natural weapons, yet they won wars against those who were stronger. They walked among the stars and left behind only fear. That species was human. She had laughed at the time, thinking it was a child's myth, but now, looking at the forbidden archives, she wondered if it had been truth. The next council session began with the same calm order, but Lyra's eyes never left the empty seat. The High Speaker Orath noticed her gaze. His crystalline form shifted and his voice cracked like glass. "Scholar," he said in the middle of the session, his voice echoing across the chamber, "your eyes linger too long on shadows." The delegates turned, surprised at the break in order. All eyes looked at Lyra. Her throat tightened, but she spoke anyway. "I only ask why Earth's seat is empty." A wave of silence swept the chamber. No one moved. No one breathed. The High Speaker's voice lowered, heavy as stone. "Do not ask that question again." And with that, the session ended earlier than planned. The empty seat remained, silent and untouched. But for the first time, the whole chamber seemed afraid not of what was said, but of what might be remembered. That night, as Lyra walked alone under the starlight of the Council Station's great dome, she knew she could not stop. The galaxy's greatest secret sat in plain sight, and everyone feared it. She whispered to herself, "Earth's seat was always empty, but maybe it is not empty at all." And far away on a quiet blue planet, lights flickered across the surface of Earth. Someone, or something, was listening.